There is a part of you that already knows exactly how you lose. It knows the hour when your discipline weakens. It knows the excuse you accept most easily. It knows which fear can stop you, which insult can disturb you, which temptation can make you abandon your better. Judgment. It has studied your habits because it has lived inside them. And if you never face that part of yourself, you may spend years blaming life for defeats that were prepared within you, long before circumstances arrive. This is difficult to admit. Admit it anyway. A man cannot conquer what he refuses to identify. You may have intelligence. You may have ambition. You may possess talent, opportunity, faith, and a worthy desire. Yet one unmastered weakness can continue defeating all of them. Perhaps it is delay. Perhaps it is fear. Perhaps it is the need for approval. Perhaps it is anger. Perhaps it is the habit of beginning strongly and abandoning the work when the excitement fades. Whatever it is, stop speaking of it as though it were a small inconvenience. If it has repeatedly defeated your plans, it is not small. It is an enemy of your future. Face it. Do not decorate it with pleasant language. Do not call fear caution when you know it is fear. Do not call laziness rest when you know you are avoiding effort. Do not call indecision wisdom when you are simply afraid to choose. Accurate naming is the beginning of power. A hidden weakness survives by remaining vague. Once named clearly, it can be watched. Once watched, it can be interrupted. Once interrupted repeatedly, it can lose authority. But you must become honest enough to stop protecting it. Many men defend the very habits that are destroying them. They say, this is simply how I am. No, this may be how you have practiced being. Practice can be changed. A habit may be old without being permanent. A weakness may be familiar without being necessary. The fact that you have repeated something for 10 years does not give it the right to command the next 10. Withdraw permission. The part of yourself that keeps defeating you often appears at the exact moment when progress begins demanding a price. At the beginning, desire is easy. Everyone can want. Everyone can imagine. Everyone can make promises while no sacrifice is required. Then the road asks for discipline. That is when the hidden weakness steps forward. It says, not today. It says, you have done enough. It says, this may not work. It says, perhaps there is an easier way. Be careful with these voices. They may sound reasonable because weakness has had years to learn your language. Do not believe every thought simply because it comes from within you. Some thoughts are not instructions. They are habits speaking. The higher mind must judge them. Ask where the thought leads. If you obey it today and again tomorrow, what kind of man will it produce? This question exposes much. One act may seem harmless. A repeated act becomes identity. One delayed duty may not ruin you. A pattern of delay may. One surrender to fear may be understandable. A life organized around fear becomes captivity. Think in patterns. Your defeats are often patterns before they are events. The final failure may appear sudden, but the preparation for it was gradual. A neglected standard, an excused habit, a warning ignored, a promise postponed. These small permissions accumulate. Then one day the structure collapses and the man says, how did this happen? Look backward honestly. The answer is usually there. Do not use this truth to condemn yourself. Use it to understand yourself. Self-condemnation is another form of avoidance if it produces no correction. A man may spend years calling himself foolish while continuing the same foolish conduct. That is useless. The purpose of self-examination is not humiliation. It is command. You are looking for the mechanism of defeat. Find it. Perhaps your pattern begins with disappointment. Something does not happen quickly enough. Then frustration rises. Then you reduce effort. Then you tell yourself the goal was not important anyway. Then you walk away. That is a mechanism. Perhaps your pattern begins with praise. You begin doing well. You become comfortable. Discipline weakens. You stop preparing. Then decline appears. That is another mechanism. Study yourself like a strategist studies an opponent. Where do you break? When? Why? What usually happens first? The man who understands the beginning of his defeat can stop it before it becomes large. Do not wait until collapse. Interrupt the first step. If anger usually leads to foolish speech, interrupt anger before the mouth opens. If discouragement usually leads to abandonment, take a small action before discouragement becomes surrender. If money in hand usually leads to waste, create a rule before temptation appears. Prevention is stronger than rescue. The weaker man keeps rescuing himself from the same fire. The stronger man stops carrying matches into the room. Change the condition. This requires planning. Do not rely only upon willpower. Willpower becomes tired. Structure protects the decision. If you know your weakest hour, protect it. If you know a certain influence weakens you, create distance. If you know confusion causes delay, prepare the next step in advance. Design your environment so the better decision becomes easier. This is not weakness. It is intelligence. A general does not place his army carelessly and then blame courage when the battle is lost. Position matters. Position yourself for victory. But understand this, no structure can replace personal responsibility. At some point, you must still say no. You must still rise. You must still act. Do not become so fascinated with understanding yourself that you never command yourself. Knowledge without obedience changes nothing. The man who says, "I know why I do this," but continues doing it is still defeated. Use knowledge. The hidden weakness will resist being used against itself. It may even become more persuasive after you identify it. This is natural. A habit threatened with extinction often becomes louder. If you are overcoming delay, suddenly every reason to postpone will sound sensible. If you are overcoming fear, suddenly danger will seem everywhere. Hold the line. Do not mistake resistance for proof that change is impossible. Resistance may be proof that change has begun. The old pattern is being challenged. Challenge it again. Every time you refuse the old response, you weaken the connection. Every time you choose the higher action, you strengthen another road. This takes repetition. Do not demand instant mastery, but do demand honest effort. Be patient with growth. Be severe with excuses. These must exist together. If you are severe with yourself but patient with excuses, you will hate yourself and remain weak. If you are patient with yourself and severe with excuses, you can grow without surrendering standards. Choose the second. You are not the weakness. You are the man responsible for governing the weakness. This distinction is essential. If you say, "I am lazy," identity closes around the condition. Say, "I have practiced laziness, and now I am practicing command." Language matters, but language must be followed by conduct. Prove the new sentence. Get up. Begin. Complete. The body must learn what the mouth declares. Do not expect the defeated part of yourself to disappear because you have spoken firmly once. It will test the new command. Pass the test. Then pass another. This is how self-trust returns. Self-trust is one of the first things repeated defeat destroys. A man stops believing his own promises. He says, "Tomorrow I will change," but some part of him already knows tomorrow may look like yesterday. This creates deep weakness. You must repair your word to yourself. Make smaller promises. Keep them exactly. Do not promise an entire new life before sunrise. Promise one definite act. Then perform it. Tomorrow, repeat. This may feel slow. It is not slow. It is foundation. Every promise kept restores authority. The man who can trust himself becomes dangerous to his former weakness. He no longer needs emotion to carry him. His word begins carrying weight. Build that. Do not try to defeat every weakness at once. Choose the one that causes the greatest damage. Attack the root. Some men waste energy correcting symptoms. They try to become more productive when the real issue is fear of failure. They try to control spending when the real issue is the need to impress. They try to control anger when the real issue is wounded pride. Find the root. Ask what the weakness gives you. This is an unusual question. Every destructive pattern usually offers some temporary reward. Delay protects you from the possibility of failing. Approval seeking protects you from rejection. Anger protects you from feeling vulnerable. Waste may give temporary relief from emptiness. The reward is false, but it is real enough to maintain the habit. Identify it. Then replace it. If delay gives relief, learn to gain relief through completion. If approval gives worth, build worth through character. If anger gives power, build power through calm command. Do not merely remove the old reward. Create a better one. This is intelligent transformation. A habit survives because some part of the mind believes it serves a purpose. Show the mind another way. This takes conscious practice. The part of yourself that keeps defeating you may also be connected to an old wound. Be careful here. Pain can become identity. A man who was rejected may spend years proving he cannot be rejected again. A man who was humiliated may spend years chasing status. He may think he is pursuing success. Sometimes he is still answering the wound. Face that possibility. You do not need to become smaller because something hurt you, but you should not let the pain secretly design your entire life. Heal the wound. Do not build a palace around it. If every ambition is still an argument with the past remains in command. Release the need to prove. Build from purpose. This does not reduce ambition. It purifies it. A clean ambition has more endurance because it is not constantly fed by anger. It can survive peace. This matters. Some people lose motivation when they begin healing because their motivation depended upon pain. Then they must learn a higher source of energy. Purpose, service, growth, faith. These can carry a man farther than resentment. Do not be afraid to outgrow the emotions that once pushed you. You do not need to remain wounded to remain ambitious. The man you are becoming should not require an enemy. He should require a purpose. This is mental freedom. But freedom begins with facing truth. What are you still using as fuel? What are you still avoiding? What are you still pretending not to know? These questions may be uncomfortable. Sit with them. The answer you avoid may be the door. The part of yourself that defeats you often survives because it remains outside examination. Bring light. Write the pattern. Write what triggers it. Write what you usually do next. Then write what the stronger response should be. Prepare the replacement before the test. If criticism triggers anger, decide in advance to pause before speaking. If fear triggers delay, Decide the first action you will take despite fear. If success triggers complacency, establish a standard that does not change with praise. Predecide. A decision made under calm can protect you under pressure. This is one of the highest forms of self-command. Do not wait until temptation is strong to invent principle. Choose principle beforehand. Then when the old pattern appears, you will recognize it. Say, I know what this is. That alone reduces its power. The unknown controls through confusion. The known can be challenged. Know yourself, not to excuse yourself, to command yourself. And as you begin interrupting the familiar pattern, you will discover that the hardest battle is not against the weakness itself, but against the identity that has quietly formed around it. The old story that says this is simply who you are and always will be. That story must be broken next, because no man can permanently defeat a habit while continuing to believe he is the kind of man who belongs to it. And that old story is often stronger than the habit itself. A habit may weaken for a few days, but if the identity remains untouched, the man eventually returns to familiar conduct, because familiar conduct still feels like home. He may say, I am trying to change, while secretly believing this is who I really am. That contradiction will exhaust him. You must break the story, not with fantasy, with evidence. Do not merely say, I am a new man. Live in a way that gives the statement weight. If you have always abandoned difficult work, finish something difficult. If you have always feared confrontation, face one necessary conversation with dignity. If you have always lived by impulse, create one rule and obey it. Identity changes when behavior becomes undeniable. The old story survives through repetition. So must the new one. You are not required to forget your past. You are required to stop giving it final authority. There is a difference. The past may explain the habit. It does not excuse its continuation. The past may reveal where the wound began. It does not command how the story must end. A man becomes dangerous to his weakness when he stops using history as permission. This is where responsibility begins. Not blame. Responsibility. Blame looks backward and asks who caused the wound. Responsibility looks forward and asks who must now govern the healing. Sometimes the answer is you. This may feel unfair. Accept it anyway. Life does not always ask whether you caused the burden before asking whether you will carry it wisely. A man may inherit fear from a harsh childhood. He may inherit poor thinking from his environment. He may be taught to doubt himself, avoid risk, distrust success, or accept weakness as normal. These influences are real, but once you see them clearly, you must decide whether they will remain your masters. You cannot build a strong life by spending all your power explaining why weakness entered. At some point, the question becomes what you will do now that you know it is there. This is the line between awareness and transformation. Awareness says, I understand the pattern. Transformation says, I will no longer obey it. Cross that line. The old identity may resist because it has protected you in some way. Perhaps it protected you from disappointment by expecting little. Perhaps it protected you from criticism by staying invisible. Perhaps it protected you from responsibility by telling you that you were not capable. Understand this carefully. A weak identity can feel safe. It asks less of you. It reduces risk. It protects you from the embarrassment of trying greatly and failing publicly. But safety purchased through self-betrayal becomes another form of defeat. Do not confuse protection with prison. The part of yourself that keeps defeating you may have once developed as a defense. That does not mean it still deserves command. A child may need one form of protection that becomes destructive in a grown man. Fear that once kept you cautious may later keep you small. Silence that once protected you may later prevent necessary truth. Approval seeking that once helped you survive may later make you dependent. Outgrow what no longer serves you. This requires courage because growth often feels like disloyalty to the old self. You may feel unfamiliar to yourself. Good. Unfamiliarity is not danger. It may simply be evidence that a new pattern is being formed. Do not retreat because the stronger life feels strange. Weakness felt natural only because you practiced it longer. Practice strength. Let strength become familiar. This is one of the great laws of self-mastery. The mind begins accepting as normal what it repeatedly experiences. If you repeatedly surrender, surrender feels natural. If you repeatedly command yourself, command begins feeling natural. This is why repetition matters more than intensity. A man may have one magnificent day and still remain defeated in character. Another may make a modest correction every day and become unrecognizable in a year. Choose repetition. Intensity can begin. Consistency transforms. The part of you that keeps defeating you depends upon interruption being temporary. It assumes you will return. Prove it wrong. Do not create a short campaign against weakness. Create a new standard. A campaign has an end. A standard becomes a way of living. If the weakness is delay, the new standard is prompt action. If the weakness is fear, the new standard is courageous movement. If the weakness is self-pity, the new standard is responsibility. If the weakness is anger, the new standard is controlled response. Build the opposite habit deliberately. Do not fight darkness only by shouting against it. Light something. This is more effective. The man who merely says, "I must stop being lazy," keeps his attention on laziness. The man who says, "I begin at the appointed hour," creates a practical standard. The man who says, "I must stop fearing failure," remains occupied with fear. The man who says, "I act before certainty is complete," creates a new rule. Create rules of strength. Simple rules. Clear rules. Rules you can measure. The mind responds better to definite command than vague aspiration. Be better is weak. Begin at 8 is clear. Be disciplined is vague. Complete the first task before moving to another is clear. Be brave is abstract. Speak the necessary truth calmly today is actionable. Make strength specific. This gives the new identity structure. But structure must be supported by environment. You cannot repeatedly place yourself in conditions that strengthen the old pattern and expect the new one to survive easily. If certain places awaken weakness, be aware. If certain conversations feed resentment, limit them. If certain people continually pull you toward the old self, create distance where necessary. You do not need to hate anyone. You need to understand influence. A plant grows according to both its nature and its environment. So does character. Choose environments that support the man you are becoming. This may require loneliness for a season. Do not fear it. Sometimes separation is necessary before strength becomes stable. A man recovering from years of weakness may need distance from people who only know how to relate to his old identity. They may mock the new discipline. They may remind him of old failures. They may tempt him back into familiar behavior simply because his growth makes them uncomfortable. Do not become angry. Grow anyway. You do not need permission from those who benefited from your weakness. Remember this. Sometimes people prefer the old you because the old you was easier to control. The new boundaries may inconvenience them. The new standards may expose their own lack of discipline. Do not lower yourself to restore their comfort. Be respectful. Be firm. The part of yourself that keeps defeating you often uses other people as an excuse. They will be disappointed. They will think I have changed. They will say, I am selfish. Listen carefully. Perhaps you have changed. You should. If change means becoming more disciplined, truthful, focused, and responsible, then let them notice. Growth always changes relationships. The question is whether the relationship can grow too. Do not become cruel in the name of boundaries. But do not become weak in the name of kindness. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. Strength without kindness becomes hardness. You need both. The stronger man can say no without hatred. He can walk away without revenge. He can protect his purpose without making an enemy of everyone who does not understand it. This is maturity. The old defeated part of you may also depend upon emotional chaos. It may be accustomed to crisis. Some men do not know how to live peacefully. When life becomes calm, they create a new problem. They begin an argument. They make a reckless decision. They return to a destructive habit. Why? Because chaos feels familiar. Peace feels suspicious. Examine this. You may be sabotaging progress because stability feels foreign. Do not assume every discomfort means something is wrong. Sometimes the discomfort is simply the nervous system learning a healthier condition. Stay with peace. Do not create fire merely because you know how to survive smoke. Learn a new way. The man who has spent years fighting may not know how to build. He must learn. Fighting and building require different minds. Fighting reacts. Building plans. Fighting survives. Building creates. If your whole identity is built around overcoming crisis, then success may leave you confused. You must develop a purpose larger than survival. Ask what you are building now that you are no longer merely escaping. This question is essential. A man who does not know what to build may return to the problem because the problem gave him identity. Do not need the enemy. Need the purpose. This is a great transition. The strongest version of you should not exist only when something is wrong. He should know how to create when things are right. Develop peace with progress. Learn to continue without drama. This is difficult for some people because drama creates emotional intensity, and intensity can feel like movement. But intensity is not always progress. Calm discipline may be moving you farther. Respect quiet progress. The part of yourself that keeps defeating you may be addicted to extremes. Everything or nothing. Perfect or worthless. Victory or total failure. This thinking is dangerous. It makes one mistake feel like proof that the whole effort is ruined. Then the man quits. Reject this. Growth is not a straight line. You may advance, correct, stumble, recover, and still be moving forward. The key is return. Return quickly. Do not let one failure restore the old identity. You missed one day. Return tomorrow. You made one poor decision. Correct the next. You spoke badly once. Apologize and practice restraint again. The old defeated part of you loves permanence. It says, see, you have not changed. Do not give it that power. One mistake is an event. A pattern is repetition. Do not repeat it. This is the difference. You can protect progress by refusing to turn a lapse into a lifestyle. The stronger man understands this. He does not dramatize every error. He also does not excuse it. He corrects. This balance is rare. Be rare. Another hidden part of defeat is perfectionism. It looks noble. It often produces delay. A man says, I want to do it properly, but what he really means is, I am afraid to produce something imperfect. Then he waits. He plans endlessly. He studies endlessly. He prepares beyond necessity. The work never enters reality. This is fear wearing fine clothing. Call it what it is. Perfectionism protects the ego from judgment. If the work is never finished, it cannot be criticized. But it also cannot succeed. Finish. Improve after. This is how real ability is built. The man who finishes receives information. The man who endlessly prepares receives imagination. Reality teaches faster. Do not worship readiness. Begin before you feel fully ready. Then correct. This does not mean becoming careless. It means respecting action. Action reveals weakness that thought alone cannot. Use reality as a teacher. The part of yourself that keeps defeating you may also be the part that refuses to choose. Indecision creates hidden comfort. As long as you have not chosen, you cannot be judged by a result. As long as you remain between roads, you can imagine the success of all of them. But a life cannot be built between roads. Choose. Every decision closes something, except this. You cannot have every future. You cannot keep every option open forever. At some point,